Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I am going to explain a comedy drama film called Secret Zoo. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Kang Tai-soo works a dead-end temp position at a renowned law firm, JH. Tai-soo dreams of one day landing a permanent position at the firm, but so far he has been unsuccessful. Tai-soo's law firm has been hit with scandal after scandal. Currently, its vice president Min Chul-hyun is in prison for stock manipulation and embezzlement. A group of protesters have been camping outside the JH headquarters for more than a week to protest against the firm for being unjust and exploitative. Tai-soo's college friend Song also works at the firm as an associate. The latter always invites Tai-soo for drinks on the weekends, but Tai-soo doesn't want to face his friends, who are a lot more successful than him. One day, JH's CEO, Mr. Hwang, is mobbed outside the HQ by the protesters. The protesters hurl obscenities at Hwang, which aggravates him, and he gets into a fight with the mob. The mob easily overpowers Hwang, and seeing his boss in trouble, Tai-soo puts himself in the line of fire to save him. The CEO takes notes of Tai-soo being manhandled by the crowd as he drives away. Impressed by him, Hwang invites Tai-soo for dinner, where he meets Rakwon Group's vice president and Hyun's sister, Min Chae-ryung. After Ryung leaves, Hwang gets to know more about Tai-soo. Hwang promises to give Tai-soo a permanent position at JH if he manages to revitalize a failing zoo called Dongsan Park that one of JH's UK-based clients, Gabriel Incorporated, has acquired. Tai-soo couldn't be more excited and accepts the deal immediately. However, Hwang gives him an ultimatum and says that he has exactly 3 months to revitalize the failing zoo. In the next scene, Tai-soo quickly heads over to the zoo, and lo and behold, he learns that the zoo has no animals, except for a troubled polar bear and some other animals that no one would pay to see. Tai-soo talks to the remaining zoo staff, and they reveal that the zoo's animals have been taken away by the loan sharks that the zoo's previous owners owed money to. The zoo staff consists of former director Seo, veterinarian Han, Hae-kyung, and Gun-wook. After learning that Tai-soo is the new director of the zoo, Seo proceeds to leave, but Tai-soo convinces him to stay, saying his experience will be necessary to bring this zoo back to life. Tai-soo proposes buying animals, but he is told that one can't buy endangered animals. They could seek special permission for research and breeding from the government, but that could take well over 3 months. Later that night, while returning back to his living quarters inside the zoo, Tai-soo is given the scare of a lifetime by a stuffed animal, which he mistakes for a real tiger. One of the laid-off zoo staff reveals that he is taking the stuffed toy to sell it for some money. The next morning, Tai-soo relays his problem to Hwang, but the latter tells Tai-soo to return if he can't make it work. Realizing that he may no longer have a future at the company if he fails to deliver, Tai-soo promises to make it work at any cost. Tai-soo then notices pictures of the zoo's annual soft toy contest on the wall, and suddenly, an idea strikes him. He proposes the idea of having the zookeepers dress up as animals. He stresses that people won't be able to tell the difference between a realistic animal costume and a real animal from a certain distance. The zoo staff quickly get on board in the name of saving the zoo, but Han refuses to partake in the foolishness. However, Tai-soo plays with Han's heartstrings by bringing up the story of her becoming a vet because of the zoo's polar bear, Black Nose, eventually persuading her. Tai-soo then contracts a Hollywood costume designer to design a realistic lion, gorilla, sloth, and polar bear costume. Within 2 weeks, they receive the costumes, and Seo suggests hiring actors for the job, but Tai-soo turns down the suggestion, saying their secret could get out. Left with no choice, Han, Hae-kyung, Gun-wook, and Seo become the lion, sloth, gorilla, and polar bear respectively, and the rehearsals begin. Soon, the zoo's gates are opened to the public, and it receives groups of kindergarten kids and senior citizens. The zoo staff initially struggle, but eventually get the hang of their new job, managing to fool the visitors. Their effort manages to attract 75 visitors in a week, but the numbers are not enough to keep the zoo open, so Tai-soo insists on getting a giraffe to lure more visitors. Meanwhile, Hae-kyung's boyfriend, Sung-min, dumps her after wasting 5 years' worth of her savings on a convenience store near the zoo. Seeing Hai-kyung crying, Gun-wook storms into the store, wearing the gorilla costume, and destroys it. Sung-min reports the gorilla to the police, but he is brushed aside as a lunatic. The following day, Sung-min shows up at the zoo, where Gun-wook again attacks him as a gorilla, exposing their secret in the process. After learning about Tai-soo's scam, Sung-min threatens to report them to the police, but Hai-kyung convinces him against it, and asks Gun-wook to apologize to him. Later that night, Tai-soo visits his costume designer, but to his dismay, he learns that he has taken off with the deposit, leaving behind only the head of the giraffe in the warehouse. However, Tai-soo refuses to give up, and he uses the head of the giraffe to trick his visitors. Soon, Seo falls sick from sitting out in the sun in the hot costume, so Tai-soo takes over his role. He quickly learns that cosplaying an animal at a zoo isn't an easy job, as some unruly visitors keep throwing stuff at him. Tai-soo also gets tired of sitting in the sun, and when no one's looking, he grabs a Coca-Cola bottle thrown by one of the visitors inside the pit and drinks it to quench his thirst. However, some visitors manage to capture Tai-soo, gulping down the Coca-Cola bottle. That day, a representative from JH arrives at the zoo and reveals that Tai-soo's request for animal purchase has been approved. After giving him a tour of the zoo, Tai-soo manages to send the rep off. That night, Tai-soo gets a call from Song, who tells him about his plans to visit the zoo with his kids. After seeing JH spending so much money and effort to keep the zoo up and running, Tai-soo asks Song about Gabriel, and Song reveals that Gabriel is Hwang's own shell company that he uses to manage his slush fund, much to Tai-soo's astonishment. The next day, a crowd of people show up at the zoo, and Tai-soo learns that his polar bear has gone viral. After the video of the polar bear drinking Coke hit the internet, Tai-soo and his team couldn't be more excited, and thanks to the polar bear, the zoo becomes a massive hit. Hundreds of people flock to the zoo every day to see the bear drinking Coke, and over the weekend, the zoo makes a massive profit of $100,000. One day, Gun-wook finds Hai-kyung despairing by herself and talks to her. She is still reeling from her breakup, and Gun-wook offers to take her out to dinner. Meanwhile, Tai-soo notices Black Nose roaming outside in the pit. He then finds Han watching an old childhood video of Black Nose by herself. She reveals that she let Black Nose out of the cage so he could get some fresh air. The two then talk about Black Nose's worsening behavior. She says that no matter how spacious the zoo is, it is still a cement cage for the polar bear. She reveals that she once had an opportunity to send the animal to Canada, where it could live in the wild, but she decided to keep it around, hoping that if she did her best, it would get better. She laments her decision, and thanks Tai-soo for saving the zoo, before parting ways. The next day, Hwang offers Tai-soo a permanent position at JH. Tai-soo is ecstatic at the news, but his happiness soon turns into disappointment when Hwang reveals his plans to bulldoze the zoo and build a resort. Rakwan Group had purchased over 25 million square feet of land around the zoo, and they also wanted to buy the zoo itself, but Hwang's shell company Gabriel swooped in and bought it up. Hwang then ordered Tai-soo to revitalize the zoo, so Gabriel could sell the land to Rakwan Group at a much higher price. Tai-soo tries to convince Hwang against selling the zoo, but Hwang dismisses him. Dejected, Tai-soo returns to the zoo to deliver the bad news, but he is surprised by Han and the others with a success party. Former employees of the zoo also join the party and thank Tai-soo for giving them their livelihood back. Seeing them so happy, Tai-soo can't bring himself to break the bad news. However, a former employee of the zoo from earlier in the movie arrives and reveals Rakwan's plans to build a resort on top of the zoo. Tai-soo confirms the news, and the former employees leave, disappointed. Han and the others feel cheated by Tai-soo and refuse to hear him out. Left with no choice, Tai-soo returns to his new job in Seoul and gets on with his life. However, he still regrets what's happening to the zoo. When the Rakwan Group's team arrives to demolish the zoo, Seo gets into an altercation with the company staff and injures himself in the process. The zoo staff reunite in the hospital, and Han proposes a solution. She suggests opening the zoo and putting Rakwan on blast publicly for trying to demolish it. The public campaign works, and the media and environmental activists get all over Rakwan like a bad rash. The development enrages Rakwan's vice president, Ryung, and Hwang promises to remove the miscreant employees from the zoo premises. However, it fails to calm Ryung down, as her attempts to revamp the image of the company have tanked badly. Hwang promises to resolve the problem as soon as possible and leaves. Hwang is later visited by Hai-kyung's ex-boyfriend, Sung-min, who tells the CEO the truth about the fake zoo animals. Tae-soo notices Sung-min leaving Hwang's office and figures out that he has ratted them out. Hwang and his assistant immediately leave for the zoo, and they're closely followed by Tae-soo. Before Hwang gets to expose them, Tae-soo alerts Han and the others about the development. Han stops Hwang from going into the room where the polar bear is kept. Shortly afterwards, Tae-soo joins them, and Hwang warns him to tell him the truth about the zoo animals. But Tae-soo continues to feign ignorance. Enraged, Hwang forces his way into the room and finds Blacknose sleeping. Mistaking the bear for a fake one, Hwang challenges the animal, almost getting himself killed in the process. To calm Blacknose, Han lets him into the pit, while Hwang proceeds to leave. However, Hwang returns to check the polar bear again. When he becomes certain that the giraffe is fake, Hwang gets into the pit with Blacknose and challenges him again. Blacknose attacks him, and Hwang passes out. To save his boss, Tae-soo puts on the polar bear suit and lures Blacknose away from Hwang. It works, and Hwang is brought back to safety, but at the expense of Tae-soo, who is attacked by the bear. The angry bear tears Tae-soo's suit open, exposing him. But fortunately, Tae-soo manages to run to safety just in time. After the public debacle, Tae-soo apologizes to his team and offers to take all the blame to protect them. However, Han and others oppose the idea, saying they are all as guilty as him. Hai-kyung wishes out loud that they could do something about Blacknose and the other remaining animals. Suddenly, an idea strikes Tae-soo yet again. He claims that he can save the zoo and goes to meet Rakwon's vice president, Ryung. He proposes to run an ecological park for Ryung's resort, where the animals could live. This would not only remove the roadblock stopping the construction of the resort, but it would also save Rakwon's image from being tarnished further. Ryung agrees, on the condition that Tae-soo gets Gabriel on board. Through his friend, Song, Tae-soo retrieves hard evidence of Hwang laundering money using Gabriel. Tae-soo then threatens to leak the documents to the press and police if Hwang doesn't agree to sell the zoo to Rakwon. Reluctantly, Hwang agrees to the deal. Several years pass by, and the movie cuts to a scene of Ryung presenting a video of the Rakwon Eco Park, consisting of various real wild animals. Seo and others have been hired by Rakwon Group. Moreover, Blacknose has immigrated to Canada. The movie ends with Tae-soo and Han visiting Blacknose in his natural habitat.